Hi, I'm Scott. I'm a Quiet Place fan.
Hi, I'm Senthil, and I'm a Bird Box fan.
So the two of us have decided, since we disagree, we're going to start watching as many horror movies as we can and come up with a new way of rate them. Come join us.
Good morning, Scott. How's it going today?
Hey, it's going great, Cynthia. It's good to see you. We've actually got a kind of a special episode today, just because of something that recently happened with Netflix. Do you want to fill everybody in?
Yeah, one of the movies that we saw is a movie called The Ritual from 2017, directed by David Buckner. And what's interesting about this is that Netflix actually bought this out of the film circuit and film festival circuit for $4.5 million. The second movie is one you had found called Harpoon from 2019. And I'm fascinated to compare the two and what we liked about each and what we thought led to The Ritual being picked up by a organization like Netflix, and Harpoon did not.
Actually, and that to me is pretty exciting, simple, is because what exactly was it about The Ritual that got Netflix to go, oh, hey, definitely let's grab this for 4.5 million. And then Harpoon doesn't get picked up. And the big reason for me that I'm kind of curious for this, and Simple, you and I were talking about this off camera, was I actually thought the Harpoon storyline was better than The Ritual. I think The Ritual was one of those ones that just keeps getting redone over and over and over again.
I totally agree. Harpoon was inventive. It referenced some story elements from the life of Pi and adapted it for its own purposes. And
Yeah.
it was extremely clever. Clearly low budget because it's really only one set. It's the boat, interior and the exterior of the
Yes.
boat. The Ritual had, I think what I saw in other reviews that I agreed with is just a fantastic monster, but it's a very standard storyline, very well done storyline. So what did you think about Ritual? Let's start there.
So The Ritual is a hard one for me because it's one of those movies that I watch and I'm not exactly sure what I'm watching, which isn't bad, right? Simply when it comes to horror, sometimes being left with this idea of, did this really happen or did this not really happen?
Yeah.
So this is another one of those movies that is using the Wendigo, right, as the premise for the movie. And basically a Wendigo, as we talked about in our last time when we saw Antlers, it comes back to punish for wrongs that have been done. The confusing thing for me on this movie was who was being punished, because I was like, well, there's obviously somebody within this film who didn't stand up for somebody else, right? And I don't want to give too much away, but I will say, the reason they're all out here is their friend was killed. And another part of this group saw the friend being killed and took no action in doing so. And to me, this movie was like almost a nightmare that he was having and trying to come to grips with taking no action. But at the same time, I think it was really happening. So it was this confusing mix. And then, at the end of it, you're like, I felt that the wrong people were punished by the Wendigo, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
It's that's an interesting element of it because we kept seeing the convenience store where
Yes.
the original tragedy takes place again and again in the forest. And so I had the same reaction. I wasn't sure that I knew what I was seeing. I didn't know what was real and what wasn't real. And it was difficult to tell. And especially the people in the forest that he ultimately runs across that are at the core of this, it becomes a little bit of a monster hunt at the very end. But the elements I liked about it is I saw another reviewer refer to this one of the few horror movies as character development, and the character does develop. However, the concept of punishing was a little bit odd because, like you, I thought it seems kind of odd that the one who's ultimately doing the character growth and is at the core of why they're all there and all these horrible things are happening is the one that survives in the end and nobody else does.
Well, simple. Okay, so, and here's where I was confused with that too. Does he really grow towards the end? Because, and the premise of this was an act of cowardice, right?
Yes.
So, but then you have to question yourself, if he had acted, would he too have died, right? So so to me, it's like that you can't judge somebody until you're in their place, right? You can sit around and talk, oh, if somebody was doing a shooting spree, I'd jump up and do this. I don't think you can say that until you're actually in the moment and see it. So to me, I look at this and go, would any of this other friend cycle have done any better than him? And was that the point? Was that they were all cowards, that they all should be punished for the death of their friend? And so they all were. And that's the ritual, right? Is all of you saying and blaming this, your friend, shows your cowardice and not understanding that because you weren't in the situation, you don't know how you'd act. So you're blaming this person for it. So he survives, everybody else, horrible things. And was it because they were just all cowards? And that was the Wendigos. That was the whole thing. You're either going to worship me or die.
It's an interesting question because it's a valid point. It's easy to hindsight, right? The whole concept of hindsight is easy to say, if I was there, I would have done things differently. It's really difficult to know if you really would have in a traumatic circumstance. And I thought that he was less cowardly as the movie went on. And he seemed to be more supportive of his friends and wasn't quite as cowering as he was portrayed to be early on. However, there was a scene near the very end where one of his friends is about to die, and he frees himself, but he still doesn't go and try to help.
That's what I mean. I don't think he grows, and that's what drove me nuts in this film. I thought the Wendigo was amazing. I thought the cinematography was great. That wooded area was foreboding. It was dark. It felt compressed. It's a lot like if you've never been to the Northwest and walked through some of our rainforest, it is a very creepy feeling. It's very quiet. It's very dark. It's very dense. It's hard to see. I thought they did all of that well. And I actually even love the idea that, they're walking through the woods trying to get to a shortcut and they end up at this cabin, right? Nothing goes well in a cabin. Blair Witch, Evil Dead. You find a cabin in the woods, you should just keep going, just go, which was another one of the premise. But where I got confused, Simple, this is, where did all of these people come from? Where did towards the end of it, they come back and it brings them back to the cabin. Of course it does, because that's a horror film. You always end up back where you started from. But where the hell did all these people come from?
Yeah, it's a convenient plot device to have these people show up. They don't really have any real impact on the story other than just explain the Wendigo a little bit. So I don't know that those people were needed because
it doesn't explain the Wendigo. But did it explain the Wendigo? I still
no.
It was like a cult, but it didn't explain the purpose of the Wendigo. I mean, they don't go into, and they have some creepy scenes, Simple, like the scene up in the attic with all the corpses
that are not fully explained.
Yeah, not explained at all, but very creep factor. But you kind of leave the film going, what did I just watch and what happened? And which I want to flip that now to Harpoon, right? And here's why I think Harpoon didn't get picked up and The Ritual did. I think the Harpoon didn't get picked up because the Harpoon was different. And Harpoon was a different film using a closed set, right? It was basically on top of on the boat, within the cabin of the boat. I think the elements of it were well done, but I think why The Ritual got picked up was because of the creature. Everybody likes a creature flick, right? Everybody likes that. And I have to tell you, Cynthia, the way that they did the Wendigo was brilliant. I thought it was a brilliant representation of a Wendigo.
Yeah.
But that's why I think it got picked up and Harpoon didn't, because I thought Harpoon was sweet, sweet justice at the end of this film. Yeah. It ended the way it should have ended.
Not only that, but it's a slow start. So you're not really sure where the story is going and what the movie's about, what the plot is about, because they're just three people sitting around, talking about events that happen and I guess aggression and anger at events in the past that's under the surface. And so at the beginning, it just seems like three people talking about their relationship, and then it escalates very fast and takes a lot of directions that I did not anticipate at the end. I thought it was extremely well written. One of the things that stood out for me is production value. So
yes,
it's clear, distinctive difference in production values, production quality from The Ritual to the Harpoon. The Harpoon is clearly a lower budget movie. The actors did a great job, but the cinematography and the shot selection, it's the professionalism is different in the Ritual and the Harpoon. I think that's some of it, and also the monster is pretty fantastic, and that's what you expect in a horror movie.
Yeah. And so I guess for me, I mean, do we know what the budget of the Ritual was? Because
No, I could not
couldn't
find it.
I couldn't find it for Harpoon either. And it was obvious that Harpoon was made for way less money, I would
It
gather.
was.
But what I would say is what I thought Harpoon did well was, you, by the end of this film, you truly do despise all three of these. The and I think both these films are about punishment. I think both of these films are about just reward, right? You get, sooner or later, karma is going to serve you a piece of karma pie, and you're going to get yours, right? I think both of these films were that. They were karma pie. Harpoon was brilliant karma pie. And I mean, right from the beginning, when the two best friends, one best friend beats the living crap out of his other best friend, and then they're going, well, let's go on a cruise. And it's this weird triangle relationship that is perfect for each other. I mean, all three of these characters deserve everything they get through this film. And by the end of it, you're like going, yeah, sweet justice. The Ritual, I think everybody gets punished except the person who should. It again, Cynthia, it's that whole thing. Should that person even have been punished because he acted the way he acted? I don't know. But I thought Harpoon was the better of the two films.
I totally agree. And, we talk about character development. You discover elements about each of the three characters in the Harpoon throughout the movie that I thought were brilliant revelations that I would have never seen coming. And you discover that those characters are much more complex than they appear to be at the beginning of the movie. All three of them. All three of them are quite deeper than I expected. So I thought it was brilliant. I would like to see the Harpoon picked up with more money, and maybe with once this director has more experience. And I could see, we've seen similar abandoned out on the ocean kind of movies. Some of them have done well, some of them have not.
Well, Dead Calm is one of the great ones with Nicole Kidman, right?
That's what it reminded me of.
Holy crap, that one's creepy as hell. And also, I mean, overly, I mean, very, very creepy. I'm just going to leave it at that. We could talk about it later. But yeah, it felt to me a lot like that. And the concern I have, Cynthia, with this film with Harpoon is, I think if you gave it a bigger budget, I think if you redid it with, let's call it an all-star cast, it wouldn't work. This movie wouldn't work if you had DiCaprio and Kate Winslet and Chris Hemsworth it doesn't work. And the reason this film worked for me is because it was unknowns. I didn't know any of the three, and it felt very real. I mean, what was taking place there, they were really good at expressing their emotions, anger, rage, jealousy, envy. I mean, all of the 7 deadly sins basically encapsulated within these three people.
Yeah.
Could you do that with a huge budget and an all-star cast? I just don't think it's the same.
It would be difficult, I agree, but Dead Calm is a good comparative. It's very similar, but the story is quite a bit different for our audience. Yeah. I think whether it's a well-known cast or whether it's a more experienced cast, we've seen many Blumhouse small budget movies that have excellent acting and excellent production values. I would like to see something of that nature, because I think this is a potential sleeper hit waiting to happen, with a little bit more exposure, with a little bit more polish for the pacing and the acting and the cinematography. For the cinematography, I think this could be a brilliant movie that people would really enjoy if they give it an opportunity to see it.
I actually just think for those of you watching, give it a shot. I wouldn't wait for a bigger budget. I wouldn't wait for people that you might recognize. I think this film is one of those films that it works really well because you don't know the cast and they're vile. And you'll love the comeuppance as the film comes up.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think my my final thoughts on it are that Harpoon I would strongly recommend.
Yes.
It isn't anything like I expected it to be when I got into the movie, so I really enjoyed it. I thought the writing was excellent. And I also saw, like many other small movies we've seen, this director's opportunities haven't been as much as I would like. Clearly, the writers and the directors have some real potential and some real talent. I keep thinking back to Killer Sofa. You know, we thought the movie was fantastic with different material. The Ritual, as a traditional horror movie, it's well done. The story didn't quite hold together for me, but I would still recommend both to go see it.
So I agree with you across the board, Senthil. One of the reasons why I loved Harpoon is it felt original, it felt real, it felt like this is something that could absolutely happen on a boat. The Ritual to me fell back on the basic story premise, big scary creature. When that movie started, when The Ritual started, Senthil, I thought we were going to be getting a real treat into paranoia, into guilt, into shame, into anger. I thought we were going to see, you know, this hallucinatory, you know, I can't forgive myself. And then it fell back onto, you know, ancient village people with a Wendigo. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, Senthil. There's great horror movies like that. But what I'm saying is, for me, for The Ritual, as it opened up, I thought we were about to get a phenomenal character piece on grief, anger, envy, you know, just and see these friends explode on each other as they blame each other for the death of their friend. But we fall back onto a Wendigo. But that's why I liked Harpoon, because it doesn't fall back. There's no creature in the middle of the ocean. There's no, the monster is each of those three characters, and they're all three monsters. Great conversation. I think we're going to see more and more of these, especially as the prime channels change, you know, Netflix, Amazon fight for content. I think you're going to see more and more of these indie directors get their place in film history, and at least a location to show their work, right? So until next time, Senthil, appreciate you, and I'll talk to you soon.
Until next time.